my screen quickly.
Great.
Let me just. Oh, it says you've disabled the participant screen sharing. Ah, can you enable it for me?
I'm trying. Try now.
Oh, yes, that's it. Right. Hopefully it will allow you to see. Yes, that one.
Yes,
there you go.
That's great. Thank you.
Right. That's okay. Let's hope it all stays technically working. Right. Hello, everyone. I know some of you know me. I turn up at a lot of these CAG events, quite a lot. But I'm going to do a whistle-stop tour through our broader waste management work, and it's just going to be a brush across all the different areas that we do, starting with a sort of a wider look and coming down a bit more focused, and then Mid Devon, Chris and Darren will talk about their areas, should be great. So let me just go through these. So that's just a collection of images, because I'm going to be talking about everything from our education to our landfill management, a little bit our redundant landfill management, but only briefly. So I will crack on, because I always talk for longer than I should. So Helen, tell me when I'm overrunning. Just to say that, as you know, I work in the community engagement side of things in education. So this is the wider team. It's Devon County Council. We have a team of about 18 people. So I'll go through those different areas. But just starting with the current waste picture, there's so much change happening at the moment. It's a really interesting time. And I think I've been saying this for probably the last 4 years, and it's still a lot of change, and it's still all about to happen, it feels, because the government has been consulting on lots of different things, particularly around the consistency, so getting the right materials collected from across all the different local authorities. They've consulted on deposit return schemes. The one I'm really watching closely is the enhanced producer responsibility. So that's about putting the responsibility of recycling and reclaiming materials back on the manufacturers and the brands. That's really going to be interesting and quite complicated, because there's going to be some financial mechanisms worked out to bring money from them to the collectors. So that's a really interesting one to watch. We're waiting to hear from DEFRA after the consultation as to what will happen about that. DEFRA also put out their waste prevention plan for England. They're currently consulting on the single-use plastics a bit more extensively, which I think was in the newsletter, actually, wasn't it, Helen? You put in your newsletter. So you can comment on that, please do. There's been the new environment bill, there's been COVID, there's a shortage of HGV drivers, and there's a climate emergency and biodiversity crisis. So, there's a lot going on that we're all trying to juggle at the moment. Our guiding principles historically, for the time I've been in waste management, which is about 25 years, has been this waste hierarchy and trying to move things up the hierarchy. As you're all familiar with this, I'm sure, because you're a very engaged bunch. And we obviously want to focus on the reduce and the reuse at the top, really. And we're obviously trying to get from the old sort of linear economy to a circular economy, and that efforts to make sure that things are recycled and materials that are designed out of the system as well requires an awful lot of data capture, a whole lot of very hard work on systems, because it's about resources, not just about waste, and the flow of materials through our economy. So it's a really complicated and interesting picture to be watching at the moment and trying to be a part of. Yeah, just I'm sure you guys are probably fairly aware of it, but there's really interesting webinars around it. But that's the really broad picture. So I'm just going to focus in on Devon a bit more. So obviously Devon is a two-tier local authority, which is why we have Mid Devon here as well. So Devon County is responsible for waste disposal and planning, and the districts do your collection and your litter and all sorts of other things. And interesting, I used to work for Mid Devon. I always like to say that as the recycling officer many years ago. I loved it. It was great. And that wasn't meant to be sarcastic, by the way. I did actually love that job. It was really good. There's some population household figures. I won't go through them all. Our recycling rates currently is 55.3% for the whole of Devon, excluding Plymouth and Torbay. It has dropped a bit because of COVID and all the crazy times we've had with difficulties in collecting and closure of recycling centres, because it was 56.6% last year. So it's a bit of a shame, but we'll get it back up. It's against a challenging backdrop, so we're actually quite pleased it held up as well as it did. But we know we need to do more. So that's just where we are at the moment. I'm going to talk about our recycling centres briefly and our closed landfill sites and our engagement work in a minute, but I just also always like to point out our waste revenue budget. It's approximately 38 million for County Council, which I always like to flag up because it's a huge amount of money. And if we can prevent waste being created in the first place through waste minimisation and reuse, then obviously that figure over time will drop. So this is why our engagement work and our community work is so important to us. So I'm going to just start with our redundant landfill sites briefly, because this is the bit that most people don't know about. And I just always like to flag this up because there is a legacy of landfilling in this country. And although we don't really landfill very much now in terms of our household waste from Devon, that is still going on across the country. This is one of our inspectors who's out monitoring one of the sites. We have to do it to protect and prevent harm to human health and the environment. We've got statutory duties around it. We actually, our very small redundant landfill site team, which is 3 people roughly, manage or look after the 58 sites across Devon. So there's a few stats and statistics there. Only 3 of them actually have active landfill gas extraction systems on them. So a lot of them are very old, but we do have to manage them. There's leachate control systems on another 9. There's 20 routinely visited and monitored. So, you know, this ongoing work is really important to look after this sort of legacy of landfilling. And all the sites have a site-specific environmental monitoring and maintenance regime, so they're monitored and looked after closely, particularly around pollution control. And we've got our staff who look after them have to be technically competent, and they have to sit very complicated exams every few years, which I'm glad I don't have to do. But basically, a lot of it is there's also an interesting bit around managing aftercare and the land use issues, and a lot of relationships with land use owners and all the time trying to manage those relationships and that site as well. There's no public access to these sites for many good reasons. Partly, actually, this has been wonderful because it's helped all the wildlife on sites. So although we can't tell you where they are or you know, technically, and we can't let you on the sites to look at it, but our inspectors say there's amazing wildlife on these sites, and we're looking at how best to you know, enhance that, particularly with the biodiversity crisis, because there's a wonderful potential for us to help enhance that even further. Anyway, so that was those. So I just wanted to go on to sort of the main residual waste and how we manage that. So as I said, we don't landfill much anymore. We do landfill about 5%. Last year before this, it was 4% actually. So a slight impact of COVID there, but most of our residual waste goes to energy recovery now. And then we've obviously got our large amount recycled and composted there. And you can see the 2 figures together make up our recycling rate of 55%. The bit that goes to landfill, by the way, is the sort of leftover bits from some of the recycling centres which hasn't been recycled or reclaimed. So it's sort of the difficult things that can't go into the energy from waste plants for technical reasons. This just shows you a quick map to show where the old landfill sites are, what they used to use. So there's Deepmore still an active landfill site because commercial waste is still landfilled there. Broadpath is closed. That's the one most of you might be familiar with. That's closed and has currently been sort of restored. And Heathfield down in Teambridge, that one did close at one point, and they've reopened it, interestingly. But that's where that sort of 5% of waste usually goes if we have a small amount to go. And then we've got our 2 energy from waste plants. So they're not ours technically. they're managed through contracts. I just move on a slide, I think. I remember which slide. Yeah, there they are. So we've got the Exeter Energy Recovery Facility, which a lot of you will have seen, the large chimney with a red light on the top. I know it looks big, but actually in the world of energy from waste plants, it's really small. So it's only 60,000 tonnes, which sounds a lot to us again, but actually compare it to Plymouth, which is a combined heat and power plant, that does 245,000 tonnes. So there's quite a massive difference. So I think Exeter is one of the smallest in the country. So Exeter obviously serves Exeter and the surrounding areas, and I believe quite a lot of Mid-Devon's. Actually, maybe, I'll check that actually. Some of it goes, Mid-Devon goes there, but sometimes Mid-Devon's waste can occasionally go to Plymouth, I believe. But I'll check that before the end of the session, because I did have that on a spreadsheet. But the Plymouth combined heat and power plant serves Torbay and Plymouth as well. So there's a partnership to fund and sort out that plant and manage that plant. And that also sends not only its electricity, but also the heat goes over to the Devonport Naval Base there. So that's how we do all our residual waste. But I always like to just also put this slide in, because this shows you that of that residual waste, there's still a lot of materials we can capture and take out of there and recycle. And it's always the real shocker, is the amount of food waste that's still in our residual bins. Now, this data is from 2017, but we're about to redo this waste analysis, as we call it, because we try and do it every 5 years if we can, so that we can see how, you know, we're pulling out the materials and to see where we need to focus our efforts. And clearly food waste is our topic that we have been focusing on for a long time now. And there's still a big drive to get those food waste collections in place. And just an interesting thing here, in that 40.8% of the contents of the residual bin were found to be recyclable. And as what I was just saying, in that's that pie chart. And if that's equivalent of 56,000 tons of material. And if all the households could manage to recycle just using the existing systems, so not changing the systems, just the existing systems, then our recycling rate would rise to 71% without us changing anything or investing or anything different. But obviously there are reasons why people don't recycle, and some of it is around some of the complications and things that we're always working on, our sort of public relations to try and improve things and help people. And also there's a big cost to those materials going into energy from waste instead of being recycled. So some figures there. Oh, this is actually an old slide. That's just about trying to get the district councils to all align their collections. The district councils are doing a great job at trying to bring all their services to offering a very similar collection system. I'm sure Devon will probably say that's not quite up to date, because I noticed that says 2018 on it. We can check with that. But we want everybody to be offering weekly food waste, garden waste, often fortnightly, dry recycling weekly, and then residual either fortnightly or 3 weekly. But we really want to get that focus on recycling and food waste on a weekly basis. So that's just a quick chart to show our recycling rates over time. You can see we had a massive growth back in the early 2000s, 2004, 2005, 2006, 2007, really start to shoot up, and we've been plateauing for a while, which is frustrating. Anyway, we'll keep working at it, and that's why one of the reasons we like to talk to our community groups, to help us find ways to improve. So this is just a quick one to show that we've got 19 household waste recycling centres across Devon, and there is a very wide range of materials collected at them now. And if you ever want to check what is collectible or can be taken, there is our website on the normal devon.gov.uk website. You can click on that link and you can go and look at your specific recycling centres. And also the Recycle Devon Facebook page often has updates if you need them. So we have an ongoing programme to upgrade and improve our recycling sites. And I should just flag up now, because Ashley is about to have some quite major maintenance work done. So I just wanted to make sure you saw this. There's quite a lot of information there. But Ashley Recycling Centre will be undergoing maintenance from 24th of January to the 14th of February. It'll be open to the public from the 24th of January to the 30th of January. But there will be a lot of delays because they're going to have some services removed. There won't be facilities for glass and bottles and paper, and you can use your curbside recycling, obviously. And there won't be any facilities for asbestos or bulky plastic. It's just temporary because of all the maintenance work they're doing. They need to have space to move things around. And then the site's going to be completely closed to the public from the very end of January to the 14th of February, because they are basically resurfacing the site. So it's not practical to have it open while they're doing it. So it'll all be open and lovely on the 15th of February, as long as it all goes according to plan, which hopefully it will. Oh, one thing I must also say, or wanted to say, was there is an ongoing look. They're constantly looking for a new site for a recycling centre, because Ashley is a bit small, and we know it is. And my colleagues who look after the recycling centres have now been looking for a suitable site in the sort of Clumpton Willand area for several years, and they're following a few leads at the moment. So the long-term aim is to have a lovely new site to replace Ashley in time. But we're not there yet, so that's why we're doing the maintenance work, because we can't be sure when that'll happen. Anyway, I want to talk a bit about our behavioural change work, so I'm going to whip through our behavioural change work, various campaigns and projects that we do. I would hope you all know the Recycle Devon by now. They do roadshows, press articles, advertising, social media, website. The Recycle Devon website has got loads on it, so please do visit it. That's just a little bit of the website there, showing the focus on food waste, because they do an awful lot of social media around food waste. We also have waste and recycling advisors. So these are people who literally go and knock on doors, and they work with the district councils very closely to talk to people, literally just talk to people on their doorsteps about why they may not be recycling, or if they have any questions around their recycling and how to improve their recycling. And you can see there's a few statistics there that they actually knocked on over 13,500 doors, and they actually spoke to over 4,500 people and gave out over 4,000 recycling bins or boxes, caddies, whatever form it is, which, you know, because sometimes people have moved into a house and they just, you know, didn't have a box for some reason, or maybe they needed an extra box. And these things all help. They're the practical things that can hold people back. We also have a good waste education program. It's been going for about 16 or 17 years probably. And we have 3 lovely waste educators who go into schools and they do assemblies, curriculum linked workshops. They create teaching resources. We do school community events with the schools that want to as well. So that's reaching out to their local communities, which often groups like yourselves could get involved in if your local school wants to do things like this. Obviously with COVID, we've not run them recently, and all workshops are currently delivered outdoors due to COVID, but we hope things will improve so we can go back to our usual delivery soon. We also do trips to waste management facilities. So we actually take children and adults actually to the Energy from Waste plant in Exeter and Plymouth, and we'll show them the facilities and how they work and how we really would like them to not have to bring waste there. We also have a website with lots of videos specifically dedicated to schools and teachers. So if you are a teacher or know any teachers or anyone who works in a school, please send them a link to our website, because there is a wealth of teaching resources on there. We also have a Girl Guiding and Scout badge. So if you're part of a Girl Guide or Scout group, please do our badge. That's all on the website. There's a whole set of activities they can do, and they can pick and choose a bit, and it's a great way to engage your wider community in that. And the badges are free. We just give them to the groups who actually sort of take part. Now, I just want to quickly talk about the Devon Reuse Project, and I want to flag up that we have got Jennifer with us, Jennifer Cooper, who might wave. I can't see all your faces at the moment, but she's our new reuse officer. So she's just joined us. So if you've got any specific questions around that, please keep to the end. And she's actually got to leave at 8 o'clock actually. So maybe if anyone's got anything, put your hand up at the end of my presentation. So Jennifer works particularly around reuse. She's working with our contractors, Suez, to help improve reuse at our recycling sites, increasing publicity, working with the staff to make sure they're capturing more items before they go into the skips. And Suez themselves have got a reuse type officer as well, who's also doing a huge amount of work and reorganizing the shops. They've created more covered areas. So they're working really hard to improve reuse at our recycling centres. But Jennifer's also in charge of our clothes swap kit, which I know some of you have borrowed, and that is available to groups to borrow to run their own clothes swap swishing events. It's all the rails and everything, and the stats there show that in 2019 the 5 clothes rails and 400 coat hangers and mirror and changing screen helped 21 events, and then 9,275 items were donated and passed on, and that's about 3 tons of material and clothes. So that was a fantastic result for a very simple, low-cost way of working with our community groups. Obviously, we support repair cafes. One of Jennifer's roles is to support the repair cafes, and particularly this year, the Big Fix. So those of you who took part before, then that's on the 14th of May, and I think you may have received some emails from Jennifer recently, just to sort of gauge people's interest and get people to take part. I've got a little list of the repair cafes. These are just these are the ones we know of. There are more out there, and they're more popping up all the time. So this isn't a complete list by any means. And then quickly talk about the food rescue project. So this is a particular project that's community funded, lottery funded, and it's about setting up more community fridges. And we have another officer called Emma Croft who's specifically funded to do this project. She's working with community fridges and to develop a gleaning network. So gleaning is about getting the surplus farm produce that's kind of left in the fields because it's not economically viable, but is still very useful as surplus food, and linking that up with community fridges and other community organisations. She's also working on promoting the Olio app. If you haven't heard of the Olio app, please do check out the social media, because it's a food sharing app, and there's a promo just this going on right at the moment about trying to encourage people to sign up to use Olio. So I've got quite a campaign on, and a very hard-hitting video actually. They've got a really good video, so do go and check that out on social media. And there'll also be Emma will also be organising some community cooking events that are linked to the community fridges and the gleaning. So you'll probably hear about that nearer the time. So the project's only been going for a short while, so it's a 3-year project. So it's only about 6 months in at the moment. So it's got a lot to do. That's a list of our community fridges in Devon. Again, only the ones we know about. There are more, and then there's an interesting overlap with a lot of sort of emergency food type food banks and all those other sort of food sort of projects that go on, but we tend to focus on the ones that are about surplus food, so it's not wasted, as opposed to the food bank and a need side of things. So that's just a few of them. And then you already know about CAG, so this is just a quick reminder that, you know, as Helen's always saying, we're here with support and fundraising, insurance, media and publicity, training, skill shares, seed funding, networking. We just want to really work and support groups as much as we can, and Helen does a great job of doing that. We have got 19 groups currently, and they're doing all sorts of wonderful things. So you'll probably recognise yourselves in the fact that you will be running some of these types of things as food surplus cafes, fridges, larges, composting workshops, apple days, repair cafes, clothes swaps, jumble trails, beach cleans, litter picks, plastic free events, and all sorts of crafty reuse workshops. It's a whole range of different things going on, and we'd love to add to that. So if you've got any more ideas, just, you know, let Helen and I know. We'll find a way to help them. So this is my last slide, I think, just to say that these are our 19 groups that we have as CAG groups at the moment. We do have designs on having a CAG across the whole of Devon if we can find the money or the way to make it happen. That's what we're working on, because we know that seeing groups taking action is a really important part of shifting behaviour for waste and for all things, actually, all environmental issues. Because if others see you taking action, they're more likely to take action themselves, and then you can feel part of something bigger in a movement. And, you know, start with smaller actions, but then it can grow when we influence others by what we do. So that's really one of the main driving forces behind why we think community groups are so important, because you are doing stuff on the ground. Anyway, so that was my whistle-stop tour through lots of different areas that we do. Did you want to do any questions now, Helen, or did you want to skip on to the...
I think if there are any that are specific to things that you've talked about, let's pick some of those up now, particularly if there's any for Jennifer as well, before she's got to go at 8. And then we'll have a more general discussion once we've heard from Chris and Darren as well. So has anybody got a question that they want to ask?
Oh, it's all quiet.
No, I know you're all on mute, so I can't see. Some of you have got your cameras off, so I can't see whether you've got your hand up or not. But...
Can my email perhaps be put out somehow so that people have a question subsequently, they can email me? Do
you want to pop it in the chat, Jennifer?
Yeah, sure, I do that. Also, just say I am part-time, so people realize I work on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, so apologies if I don't get back to you straight away, but I will put my email in there now.
Okay. And while you're doing that, Tim's got a question. Tim, could you also share where you're from?
Oh, hi there. So, thank you. I'm from Tiverton, so I'm involved with Sustainable Tiverton Rerouted, and I'm currently working on a community cafe. We're hoping to set up. Well, we have a location for it. We have all the surplus food coming to us. We're hopefully going to be doing surplus food cooking at least 2 or 3 days a week from about March onwards. I was interested in the food rescue project, and I didn't catch the name of the person responsible for that.
It's Emma Croft.
Emma Croft. Is it possible to get her email at all? Because I'd love to get in touch with her and talk a bit more about the plans that we've got for this location we've got planned.
Yeah, do you want to drop me your email, Tim, and I will, sure. or via Helen. I don't know how we do it, but yes, then I'll put you in contact with her directly, and
I can. I'll get back on the on mute now.
Great.
Okay.
Tim, have you
Right.
actually got a venue? I'm going to throw a question back to you because talking to Sally, I knew that there was a plan for something like that in Tiverton. So have you actually got a venue in mind now?
We have a cafe that it's a commercial kitchen that has been left vacant and in need of a little bit of love and care. But we were at there last week with the caretaker there and a couple of other people who are interested as well. So I'm currently out to funding because we're also going to plan to use it for sort of digital stuff as well. So the plan is to not only cook there, but also to film it, to make sort of webcasts and podcasts and sort of film these things and to make recipe things and have a website to go along with it. I also have a second community fridge there as well and a freezer with the meals that we've cooked. So it's all fairly well advanced because the facility is just sitting there empty waiting for us. So yeah, Sally is well aware. I had a long chat with her on the canal at the places when she was riding a bike. So yeah, so we're hoping to get motoring by about March. We hope.
Okay, Tim, can I just ask a question back as well?
Sure.
Is that separate to the Rerouted project? Is this a separate project or part of it?
It's sort of an offspring of Rerouted because Rerouted just operates once a month out of St George's in Tiverton. So the plan for this is that we'll do at least 3 days a week.
Oh, wow.
It's directly opposite a children's centre as well, and it's on the bus route, and it's got 2 schools within about 2 minutes of it. So the plan is that we'll sort of try and get parents in the mornings as well. So it's sort of obviously substitute cooking skills and just sort of getting people cooking and also link that into the wider kind of energy poverty agenda as well. So we all know that energy is going through the roof. I've got links to Advice UK and a couple of other advice services. So I hope we'll be able to get advice on site as well. So we'll bring them with the food, the smell of fresh bread, we'll get them in through the door. Once you've got them, then we hit them good and hard. So the plan is well to hopefully involve children in the cooking as well. So that's kind of that way sort of May to June time.
Okay. Well, if possible, we could always try and link it with the schools work we do if there is something that will work.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, I'm a chair of governance of the school anyway, so got links to schools in Tiverton, but we'd love to kind of wider links would be absolutely amazing.
Yeah, excellent. All right. Well, if there is something we can do there, let us know.
Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
And yeah, I'd love to be part of that conversation too with Emma and yourself. So fab. That's fantastic. Great. Any other questions for Bobby at this point? Yes, Tony, fire away.
Hi, I'm Tony. I'm from Uffcombe Green Team, and I coordinate the Uffcombe Community Fridge, which isn't on your list, Bobby. So maybe.
Oh yes, I will amend.
Thanks very much. We do run slightly differently. Our doors aren't open to the public, although we take surplus food. We actually deliver it so we can target where it goes. So so it may not be may not be, you know, it's understandable that maybe you've missed it because we don't publicize it so much because it's not generally open to the public. But you know, talking of food waste, I was really surprised to see I think what you were saying is in black bins 40% of that waste is food waste.
Well, I think it was 30%, but yes, a huge amount. Okay, yes, huge amount.
Yeah, which, you know, from homes, from families, they're still wasting 30% or it adds up to 30% of the rubbish. Is there any way you're targeting that and that we can be involved in publicizing it? And have you got literature we can use with our families and our residents to try and attack that?
Yep. So the food rescue project that I mentioned quite briefly, that's the Olio app is that one way of trying to get families to recognise that, you know, if they've got too much of something, they can swap with their local neighbours who are also on the Olio apps. They might go, I bought 3 for 2 and I don't need it, and you can swap with your local neighbours rather than throwing it away. So the Olio is specifically trying to target that side of things, but the whole food rescue project is going to be creating the community fridges and supporting groups. So and we're certainly, I know Helen is working with the Teignbridge CVS to do an event around food waste down in Teignbridge, and if there's enough interest, maybe we should look at trying to do something specifically in the Mid Devon area. But obviously the Recycle Devon has our website and everything. It has lots of social media around food waste. We have a recipe book for using up wasted food. We have got books we can let you have, free books to give away. So yes, we could definitely give you literature. We can definitely help you in immediately in Ufcombe, as it were. And we can also look longer term and see what else we can work together on.
I was thinking more, you're talking about food that still can be used. I'm wondering if it also involves food that it may be waste, that's been left on the plate, that's not, bones of chickens and things like that. That's because that could go in the blue bin or the blue bins, couldn't it? And
that sort of food, definitely. We are always trying to encourage more to do the food waste, more people to take part in their food waste collections, and certainly Mid Devon will probably have more to say about how they promote that locally, but we do work with all the district councils. Oh, Darren's got his hand up now. We do work with all the district councils to promote the food waste collections. I'll let Darren step in now.
Okay, thank you.
Evening, everyone. This would be part of my presentation. So, Tony, I'll discuss that a bit further in a minute, and I'll talk to you about the trial we conducted in Mid Devon and the results that we got. Cheers.
Okay. Has anyone got any other questions? And we can pick up on that point again, Tony, as Darren's just said, after his presentation. Has anyone got anything else specifically to Bobby at this point? Or shall we segue beautifully into the next presentation, and then we can pick up points about both of them at the end?
I'll do the screen sharing for them. So I'm just going to share my screen again. Hopefully I've got the right presentation up. And Darren, you'll just have to let me know we want me to change screens.
Yeah, sure, I'll do that for you. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Bobby. It's there's a few points that I'm going to take from yours and sort of expand on a couple of areas and what Tony was saying. So my name's Darren Beer, Operations Manager for Street Scene and Open Spaces. I've been in this position for 18 months, 2 years now. So it's fairly new, and I came in during sort of the COVID period. So this is why I'm really interested in the sort of the waste hierarchy on the prevention and reuse, because we haven't been able to do so much of this or what we've wanted in the last 2 years because of the restrictions of COVID. And it'd be interesting at the end to see what ideas people have, because I sit sort of from the recycling, composting and disposal side of it, but part of sort of the litter strategy and part of our sort of waste fitting into the Devon Waste sort of partnership that we're with on the DESMEG is that we are looking at sort of, it's not just about the recycling composting, it is about how, it's the importance of reuse and actually prevention. And Chris will introduce himself as well, just a minute. If
Chris Spooner. Oh, sorry. Hi, I'm Chris Spooner. I'm the recycling officer for Mid Devon District Council. My main job role is to promote recycling across Mid Devon District Council. Thank you, Darren.
Okay, thank you. And Bobby, if we can go to that second, that's brilliant. So Bobby was talking about sort of percentages and sort of where we need to be. And you've got some figures there that says we need to recycle 60% by 2025. This is a Devon target. The 65% by 2035 is a national target that we're needing to achieve. At the moment, Mid Devon around about 54 at this moment in time. And I'll explain then later about the sort of the trial we had. And Devon as a whole is on about, as Bobby was saying, about 55 or something, but we're not hitting that target. East Devon have hit the 60% already, and they're the only district at the moment within Devon that have hit that 60 sort of that milestone, and they're one of only a few in the country. And as you see from one of the previous slides, is that it stagnated in recent years. So we need to look at ways to actually increase our recycling rate, which I'll go into a minute. one of the other targets of the Devon waste strategy, or the Devon and Torbay waste strategy, is that we're going to reduce the waste collected per head in Devon to 400 kilos per year by 2030. It looks an easy target. I'll just put it into a context. At the moment, Mid-Devon, well, last year, Mid-Devon were on about 260, 261. At the moment, we're on 279. Due to the impact of COVID, people working from home, consuming from home, and so on. So there is quite a bit of work that we need to do there. You're probably all aware of Mid-Devon's commitment to be net zero by 2030. And I'll also talk about our draft litter strategy. And I'd be nice to hear from other people on this call to see what they think. So going back to the sort of the waste strategy, and Bobby was talking about sort of the aligned option. We've actually got the super aligned option now, which is looking at things like 3 weekly and actually increasing the types of products we recycle, which Chris is going to talk about. We are aware of the sort of the government consultations, and we'll wait to see how that will affect us. But regards the consistency side of it, actually we're recycling. Devon as a whole is actually doing very well with that. We're recycling sort of the 6 key elements, and we're also recycling quite a few more. And as I said, Chris will talk about that one in a minute. Before we go on to Chris's slide, I'll just talk a little bit because it's not really in this. So I'll talk about the waste recycling trial that was conducted in Mid-Devon. I can't give you what we're going to do because it's not been concluded. It's not gone to committee or the cabinet yet to decide where they want to go with. But I'll just give you a few sort of things that happened. So we did a trial over 3 months. Chris put a lot of work into that because it wasn't just a 3-month trial. We had a lead-in period of about 6 months to get some information together and put stats together. So the waste trial that we conducted was all we changed was we went from 2 weekly residual waste collections to 3 weekly residual waste collections. Everything else remained the same. So we had the 2 weekly recycling, the weekly food collections, and the opt-in paid 2 weekly garden collections. So all we were looking at was the impact of going from 2 weekly collections to 3 weekly, and we split the trial with bins and half the trial on sacks to see the impact of that. It went to about 12, I think it was about 1,400 residents in the end, about 300 in rural and about 1,000 or so, 1,100 in the urban area of Tiverton. So it went to Holcombe Rogus rural and Tiverton area. And what we focus on especially in the bin area, where we're able to ensure containment so that residents had to contain what they put out within the bin or bins, depending on how many they were given. And the impact of that was dramatic, but not just in the bin area, but in the sack area, but more so in the bin area, where it sort of meets the stats that you saw the pie chart that Bobby had earlier. And what we found is around about 21% of food waste was diverted from residual waste bins into the food caddy, the blue caddies, which then changed our sort of recycling rates. Because just to put you sort of also into perspective is that during COVID, people were putting far more waste out as well as recycling. So our recycling rate went up dramatically, around about 17%. But the problem was our residual waste went up a similar figure. So actually our recycling rate remained the same. It didn't change. So taking food out of the residual and put it into the food waste had a huge impact in the rural area. No, sorry, in the urban bin area, it reduced the residual waste people put out around about 41%, which showed that with education and a little bit of sort of soft enforcement, people recycled a lot more, and it met the sort of the Devon figures and so on. So massive impact on this sort of and where we need to go. Potentially from the trial, from the SAC area, potentially the recycling rate would go to 61%, and in the bin areas the recycling rate we got was about 68%. So you can see how that sort of compares against current figures and the rates that we need to achieve by 25 and by 35. Thank you very much for that slide. If you can move on to the next one, please, Bobby. I'll pass this over to Chris.
Thank you, Darren. So in Mid Devon, what we collect and where it goes. So all non-recyclable waste collected within Mid Devon is taken to the Energy from Waste facility in Exeter. On occasion, sometimes the Energy from Waste facility in Plymouth. All garden waste collected within Mid Devon is sent to a reprocessor in Exeter that turns the garden waste into compost, which is then used to improve soil for farmers across Devon. Food waste is sent to sorry, I think the slides changed, Bobby. Thank you. Food waste that's collected within Mid Devon is sent to an anaerobic digestion facility in the UK. Anaerobic digestion is the process through which bacteria breaks down organic matter in an absence of oxygen. For all dry recyclables, so we work in partnership with Exeter City Council to source buyers for our dry recyclable materials. Within Devon and Exeter, when sourcing reprocessors for our dry recyclables, we use the proximity principle, which highlights a need to treat and or dispose of recyclable materials in reasonable proximity to their point of generation. The principle works to minimise the environmental impact and cost of transport. We also give preference to UK reprocessors. We also look for competitive prices for the product. Every effort is made to ensure that the quality of the product meets the standard required by UK reprocessors, and we look for reputable companies. Textiles collected within Mid Devon, either from the curbside or by the clothing banks, are sent to the Salvation Army. All small electricals collected from the curbside are processed by a company based within Devon. And we also accept batteries, mobile phones, ink cartridges and toners, and these are also reprocessed in the UK. Bobby, would we be able to go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So in Mid Devon, we reuse and recycle within Mid Devon. We promote the waste hierarchy by encouraging residents to use or donate bulky items before recycling, as this is a significantly better for our environment. Coffee pods. Not all manufacturers are currently offering a recycling service for their coffee pods, but we keep our website up to date with the manufacturers that are currently offering a recycling service for their product. This can be found on A to Z of Waste Materials webpage. Soft plastics are accepted by lots of supermarkets across the district. We promote real nappies where possible, and our end-of-life wheelie bins. So the wheelie bins that are no longer fit for purpose are sent to a reprocessor within the UK that turns the wheelie bins into pellets that we then use in the manufacturing process of our new wheelie bins. All the wheelie bins provided for the free weekly waste collection trial were made from 66% of our end-of-life wheelie bins, and the other 34% was made from recyclable material. Bobby, could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. My final slide is, at Mid Devon Council, we're passionate about reducing our carbon footprint and plan to become carbon neutral by 2030. On our path to becoming carbon neutral, we have trialled electric vehicles within multiple services across the council, From this trial, a decision has been made to purchase 10 electric vehicles. We've had 250 square meters of solar panels fitted to our depot in Willand that produces 50 kilowatts per hour, up to 50 kilowatts per hour of green energy. And also the free weekly waste collection trial was a success in many ways due to the willingness to embrace change from the residents that took part in the trial. During the trial, we managed to achieve a reduction in non-recyclable waste by up to 44%, and up to 29% increase in food waste collected. Also, in the urban area of the trial, we saw the biggest reduction of CO2 equivalent emissions, which equated to 0.85 tons of CO2 equivalent in the urban bin area of the trial. In total, the trial saved Mid Devon District Council 1.3 tons of CO2 equivalent per week. This is the equivalent of driving a standard car to Spain and back 3 times in a week. And I will pass that back to Darren for the next slide. Thank you. Hi, Darren, if you're speaking, you're on mute.
Thank you, Chris. Just to say that I put the word draft in there for our litter strategy. I'm hoping that it will go through at some point, but it needs to go through a committee before it can go into place. But this is sort of one of the key areas that sort of for tonight, where I'm looking for sort of where we can support the groups and where the groups can support us. So the litter strategy covers, and in line with the national strategy, covers 3 areas, which is education awareness, better cleaning litter infrastructure, and improving enforcement. I will focus in a minute on the education and awareness, and I'll just briefly talk about cleaning litter infrastructure. So we've got about 850 bins in the district, which we empty on a basis of anything between once a week to nearly every day of the week, depending on where it is and how full it's getting. And we sort of analyse how full they're getting, what's happening around it, and so on, condition. And so we've got a fairly sort of concrete plan in place for our infrastructure, and we've also put in, you might have noticed, in the 3 of the towns in the district, we've recently through funding installed a number of recycling bins. So at the moment we got, I think it was 31 bins, I think it was, and we're analysing those at the moment to see how much of that all the recycling contents can be recycled, because if people are putting the wrong stuff in there, it's difficult for us to recycle, and we have to have it rejected. So part of the litter strategy going forward is how we can ensure or make sure that people that use those bins, and we encourage to use those bins, put the right products in. Then we move on to enforcement, and that's through people like Chris and our district officers to enforce through different means to ensure that people don't litter, put the things in the bins, and so on. But as I said, if I can just focus on the education and awareness, and if I can just move on to the next slide, please. So part of the litter strategy is I've got the sort of the 3 aims that I've just described. And these are sort of the objectives I want to achieve within the education and awareness. And from those objectives, I've got actions, and those actions include a lot of what I would like sort of cross-service working, cross-partnership working, supporting each other. So things like campaigns, and getting sort of people into the district to promote waste recycling and also anti-littering. So things like in the markets, putting tables out and putting people on those tables so that we can better educate and sort of change the behaviours of people. I'm not saying that all people need educating. It is only a small minority, but it's trying to educate even those that do the right thing to then also put pressure on those that don't do the right thing. And it's trying to look at ways in which we can encourage people to do the right thing and for them to take responsibility for their own behaviours. There's different techniques. I've seen the sort of Scottish litter campaigns and things like nudge techniques, and I've been on a couple of seminars recently that look at sort of the nudge technique about putting the positive spin on things rather than saying there's rubbish there. It's like, please, we've got a lovely community, we've got a lovely countryside, let's keep it clean, that type of action. And so I also work with Clean Devon on some of those initiatives. And as I said, it's just putting that spin so that it's trying to find ways in which we can encourage people to do the right thing. And I had a couple, I think it was Tim earlier, and also Bobby was talking about work in schools. We ourselves haven't been able to work in schools for a couple of years because of the COVID, but we're hoping once the sort of we'll see how long it goes on for, but we're hoping to start to work in schools with the different schools in how we as Mid Devon can assist in that. So we've got obviously the Devon perspective, we've got the different groups, and we as Mid Devon want to be part of that. So working in schools, helping to develop a programme to reduce litter, and also going on to assist in the litter picking. We want to do things like competitions, and I think one of the key areas is working with sort of youth groups to understand issues and why people do litter of different ages, not just teenagers, school age children, adults and so on. And it's just trying to understand so that we can find ways to tap into ways to prevent them or find ways that we can prevent littering in our district. Right, if we can just move on to the next slide, and this will be back to Chris.
Right. Hello, thank you. So across Mid Devon, we do try and support action groups where we can. We do offer litter picking sticks, black sacks, high visibility jackets, collection and disposal of waste. There's also the opportunity where you can download risk assessments from our website. We also offer insurance for the groups, and we're always happy to give any advice or answer any questions that may arise. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just need to say thanks to those groups that have been going out during COVID, whether it's in very small groups because of the restrictions in place, or larger groups when those restrictions sort of ease. But I do have to say thank you to all of those groups that do support it. And we will be putting part of the litter strategy, will we be putting some of the stats together, because I understand and I know the need to sort of measure and monitor what we do. So we'll be doing things like, we weigh it anyway, but collecting those results and then promoting the sort of the weight and what we collect or what you collect as part of our strategy. So it's, as I said there, it's in the writing, it's moving forward. How can we support each other? And just the last slide. Thank you. So just a picture of one of our recycling vehicles and the type of things that we recycle within that. So I'm happy to take some questions now, but if we want to wait, and Helen will intervene a minute and then we can crack on. Thank you.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much, Darren and Chris from afar. Certainly, I have learned a lot from both presentations. Really interesting. I mean, shocking in a way, in terms of the food. The percentages of food that go into the residual waste versus, the results when you did your 3-weekly trial. It's it's not rocket science, is it? But it's how do we change those behaviours, make those stick is one of the interesting questions. And I love all the nudge theory stuff. So I definitely think, yeah, there's opportunities there and good ways to be working there using nudge theory. Bobby and I were talking earlier about carrot and stick approaches, and I'm definitely much more of a carrot approachy person than wielding the stick. But anyway, I diverge slightly from the topic. So thank you to all three of you for fascinating presentations. Lots of food for thought, if you'll excuse the pun, for me. I'm just going to open it up to anybody to ask questions. So if you can, you've got a little raise your hand icon if your screen is off, or you can just wave your real hand if you want to ask a question. Anybody? Esther, you're on mute. It's the other one. That's it. There you go.
Yeah, just a question for Chris. No, for Darren, probably to do with the litter picking. I know in Crediton, Turning Tide has actually got a contract for litter picking from the local town council, and I'm not quite sure how that's funded. So I just wondered what the scope might be for sustainable Crediton getting involved in litter picking. And the other thing that really riles me about litter is the litter that's actually in the hedgerows. That's actually nothing to do with. It's a responsibility of takeaway companies, food companies. Young people with cans and things like that. Now, walking around the lanes in Crediton, around Crediton, as a result of COVID, doing a lot more walking, there's masses of stuff of litter in the hedgerows, which is not good for the environment. So how do you tackle that?
Okay, thank you, Esther. Just a couple points on that. I'll refer to sort of a couple areas, and it equates to all of our areas in the district. So just up the road from a fast food restaurant in Tiverton, there's a roundabout which we clear at the moment. We're not contracted, but we clear that area 6 times a year. At the moment, we're probably on about 15-20 times for that section of road. One of the key things is that if we can keep the district clean, it then encourages others to keep it clean. But we have got that issue of objects being placed, especially in areas that's very difficult for us to actually remove. So things like side of the highway, side of the main roads is a very difficult place for us to actually clear the litter for anyone because of the high-speed roads, and we don't encourage litter pickers to pick from those areas. We ask them to pick off roads and so on. So we're aware of that issue, and part of this strategy, the litter strategy, is to look at how we can work with the fast food companies to reduce litter. And I can't remember where I saw it, just literally recently, but things like people like Costa and so on, when they put the name of the person's name on the coffee cup, they tend to put it in the bin more so than those that don't have the name on the cup, because they think it's personal to them, it's got their name on it, and they tend to put those objects in the bin. So it is, I don't have the answers, and I've been quoted on Devon Live and some papers saying, no, Mr. Beard doesn't have all the answers. And as I said, if I did have all the answers, I probably wouldn't be sat here. I'd be probably sat in somewhere else, making large sums of money, because there is no single answer to this. But it's putting things together to to sort of, it's not a short-term solution. I think what we need to do, like with the sort of the smoking of years gone by, is that we need to put pressure on people to so that it isn't a good thing to litter. And as I said, using different techniques, it's something that has to evolve over a period of time, and it has to involve central government in this as well. With regards litter picking, if you give me some detail, I've got your email anyway, Esther, because we spoke not so long ago. We do encourage litter picking groups to do litter picking, and we can supply the litter picking sticks and so on, especially if it's a group working together.
Turning Tide already have a contract with the district, with the town council to pick litter up in Crediton. They go around picking litter up. I don't know if you know, you were aware of that.
Yeah. I live down by the station.
Okay.
So I know where they're sort of they sort of where they meet and so on. And and in my previous role, I did some work with Turning Tide, so I know of the things that they do with the community and so on. But it doesn't stop other people from having litter groups. We got a numerous litter groups in the community, you know, as I said, a few people, and we've even got a couple individuals that sort of support it and clear lay-bys, puts the rubbish in the bags, and then we go and collect it the sort of the following working day. So and I do encourage, you know, those groups, because if we can keep litter, you know, lay-bys clear of litter, we hope that it puts the pressure on that, you know, it isn't nice to chuck the coffee cups, the takeaways into those lay-bys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Helen's on mute now. I'll speak. All I was going to say was adding to your stuff, Darren, our education team. The most popular workshop that they do is around litter, and it's our Plastic Pirates litter workshop aimed at Key Stage 1. And then they do another litter workshop with the Key Stage 2. And those are on offer to schools as free workshops. So, you know, we can do a push on promoting those, particularly in Mid Devon, when it's at a time that suits you.
Yeah.
School term.
And obviously we've got the British Spring Clean that will be coming up soon. So
so yes, we always promote that to the schools as well, because they do the Great British School sort of tidy up as well. But the other thing I was going to say is our you mentioned youth groups. Our Scout badge and our Guide badge both have litter as part of that. So, you know, it's one of the activities they can do to gain their badge. So again, that might be worth promoting to the local groups.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
I'm just going to chuck in case Tony's not about to say it. Is that they've also been supporting youngsters doing Duke of Edinburgh's Award through. Is that what you were going to say, Tony?
Oh, my glory, yeah.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. No, and I just wanted to say what great support we get from Chris and his team, Darren. And we're lucky because we're Ofcom and he's based in Willand, but I'm sure it's available to everybody else as well. So our litter picking is well supported by Chris. We also clear lay-bys, and I don't know if you've seen "Don't Be a Tosser" poster.
Yeah, all right.
I think that's really effective because it grabs people's attention. They actually take notice of it because of its suggestion. And those lay-bys where we put up those posters afterwards seem to have been less litter there once we put the posters up. Hopefully they're having some effect.
That's good to hear.
Chris and I were on a sort of a Zoom call last week, and there is suggestions. What I'm not saying what you're saying is untrue, but it's also been proven in other places and situations. So it was an area in London where they had CCTV footage of people just putting black bag on top of black bag. So one person would put a black bag out, and then all the neighbours were put on all these black bags. Whether the person got fined or not, I don't know. But they put the sign up on that lamppost that said a person here has been fined £400 or whatever it was. and as in your example, it did stop the litter. And so those are examples of what we're looking for. The don't be a tosser one is debate, not in the sense of it's the message. So some people think it's brilliant, other people think it's a little bit.
I think it grabs attention. I think that's
it does grab attention.
Yeah.
And if it works, it works.
Yeah. So I'm in Exmouth, and there's been quite a debate about whether that particular slogan should be used or not. And I'm on the I think it's brilliant side. But I think the town council were a bit reticent to to go with that. And I think, come on, if it solves the problem, or as you say, it grabs people's attention and creates a talking point. I think there's benefit to be had there. Brilliant. Has anybody got any other questions out of what's come out of the conversations? And then I just want to make sure that because some of you gave questions or challenges to our speakers when you booked on. So I just want to make sure that all of those get picked up as well. Tony, what were you going to say?
Yeah, well, I was going to change the subject anyway. I was to plastic film, which we've referred to already this evening, and supermarkets are now collecting that. And one is the route they're taking. Are we confident the route that supermarkets are taking is an acceptable way of disposal? And two, if supermarkets can do it, why aren't local authorities doing it?
Ooh. Who wants to pick that one up?
You going first, Darren?
Right, I think Chris was. I'll talk about. Yeah, I'll let Chris start on that one.
So, from what I know about supermarkets, all the soft film that they collect goes to a company called J-Plus, and they are a well-known company in their field. They do what they say on the tin. It is as advertised, and they do recycle the plastic that is given to them. Usually, I believe they're looking into closed loop recycling, so the bags are actually given to them by Tesco as such. They then closed loop recycle, so that means they reprocess that and then send it back to Tesco as their bags for life that they then sell to their customers to be reused again. So it does a complete circle. If Darren's okay, I'll let Darren answer the second part of the question.
So there's, we are in a world where services need to be paid for, and there needs to be sort of an income to pay for some of these services, and we do need to look at viability. So at the moment we don't do the soft plastics, but I am sure in the future, as a sort of the waste and recycling industry, I think there will be change in the coming years. And there will be, as Bobby said earlier, there will be a responsibility for the producers to actually change some of their habits, because the costs will be theirs. For the extended producer responsibility, the EPR. So it will place an emphasis on the sort of manufacturer, and it might be then that they look at what they sort of how they sort of package their products.
I'll just add a little. Sorry, go on, Tony.
I was just going to say thanks for that, Darren. I suspected that was the case, but don't get me wrong. I am happy that supermarkets are doing it and they're picking up the cost. I think that's that's part of what you were saying just there. The producer or retailer bears the cost and the effect of their packaging. Sorry, Polly.
Sorry, I was just going to add a little bit to say that I think that there's been a huge amount of media around things going abroad, which has really, made people question and shined a light on a lot of waste crime, actually. And one of the things that's really perhaps not spoken enough to the public is the problem of waste crime, and how there are dodgy gangs out there who do things, and then unfortunately sometimes that reflects badly on local authorities because waste ends up in the wrong place sometimes. But I have to say that I have a high regard for the Devon authorities, because they try really hard to collect high quality materials, and if you collect high quality materials then you can generally sell those to good contractors, and we try very hard to keep those materials either in the UK or at least in Europe, and the countries with better standards, because not all of them in Europe are the same. but we try not to let it go any further. And you know, I think an awful lot of attention's been paid to that by all the districts. And I do actually have a slide which I didn't really share, but it's a link to every district council. All the district councils have a page saying which companies their materials go to, or at least which country, or you know, they try to show where their materials go. And I'm pretty sure Mid Devon has one as well. And so it's really important that we do ask these questions. And I also wanted to say that when I saw that Co-op were bringing out their own soft plastic collection, I contacted them to check where it was going. And I think it's really important that we do these things, we ask these questions. And theirs does also, as Chris was just saying, it gets turned into bin bags that they will then resell through their shops. And that is all happening in the UK through UK industry, and the capacity for plastic recycling in the UK is definitely increasing, and that's really come about from a lot of those programs highlighting the problems. And I think it's really, although very sad and negative, has really helped to push the sort of public awareness along and make people look carefully at the fact we do have a shortage of capacity for plastic recycling in this country, and that's been addressed now, which is brilliant. And I think the Devon authorities work very hard to make sure they do the right thing.
Great. Do you want to come back on any of that, Tony?
No, I'm quite happy with that, and I agree with what's been said. I think it's moving in the right direction.
Great, thank you. Neil?
There's a couple of local plastic-free groups that are trying to get the Surfers Against Sewage plastic-free town status. Is there any help available from either of the councils on that issue?
Helen, do you want to say about the CAG work we've done, or shall I say?
The question was directed to the local authority.
Well, all I was going to say was I'm pretty sure didn't we hold an event for CAG groups around plastic free? If we haven't, then we really ought to.
Well, we did. So we had an event last year, and actually there was a lady, Claire, from Plastic Free Tiverton, who came to that and had quite some useful thoughts to throw into there. And actually one of the things that she said was it was frustrating trying to get somebody from Mid Devon on board with it at a councillor level, not at officer level.
Just start on that. I can only speak for now. I wasn't in place a couple of years ago, but Councillor Colin Slade is behind the plastic free, and also the school work and so on. So he is fairly positive and pro what we're doing, and he backs up the things that we're putting in place. And he also has some suggestions, and he is also speaking with the schools himself. And he also put some working with the supermarkets just before they actually put their own the soft plastics in place.
Okay, great.
We do have resources aimed at schools around plastic-free lunches, which is then aimed at parents, really. So thinking about sort of practical steps you can do for waste-free lunches and things like that in terms of resources. And I'm just going to ask a question back, actually. Does Tiverton or any of the other towns in Mid Devon have any waste-free shops? I know Crediton used to have a little shop, didn't it? Does anyone know?
Neil knows a good one.
Yes, there's the House of Green in Tiverton. But there's various other shops that do allow you to use your own containers and that sort of thing for goods.
That's good. There's been a big growth in waste-free shops, which has been brilliant to see. They're popping up all over the place, but I don't get to Tiverton or Crediton very often, so it's interesting to see what's appearing. Tim.
There's another one just probably on Angel Hill as well, which is a waste-free shop, sort of recycling various bits and pieces. So yeah, so Tiverton has at least 2 now. So yeah,
I missed the name. Sorry, Tim. What was that name again?
It's I'm not quite sure the name, unfortunately. It's forget me not or something. It's something along those lines. But it's kind of reusing older stuff, but it's completely waste-free. So yeah.
Great, thank you. So
Esther, I might have said, but I think Stevie Beads in Crediton is starting to do sort of container free, where you take your own containers, fill up on grains and so on. So I know they're doing some of that now. That's the bakers, sort of the end of town.
Esther's talking, but she's on mute. So we missed what you said, Esther. Where's she gone? The microphone button. It's the little microphone button. I think one of the other things that has come up during lockdown is a kind of reversal of a lot of cafes' willingness to do refills. So one of our CAG groups, Dawlish Against Plastic, who actually gave the presentation at the Plastic Free Communities event that we ran, they're doing a piece of research now, working with local cafes, trying to get them to get back to that kind of basic philosophy of actually bring your cup in and get it refilled, rather than everybody being scared of touching refills and things like that. So so they're trialing, they're going to be running a kind of pilot across Dawlish, and then once they've kind of got the findings of that, then I'm sure they'll be happy to share that with everybody as well, in terms of encouraging local businesses to get back to reducing single-use plastics, particularly with takeaway drinks and things like that.
Just to add to that quickly, Helen, some communities are sort of got their own community cup, which they then work with their local businesses, don't they, to do. And I think that's lovely, because that's a little bit of community pride and having your local cup for your local coffee shops. And I just think that's a really nice approach. Was Dawlish Against Plastic doing something around that?
So they're also in conversation with the town council, who are exploring different possibilities and permutations of that, and hopefully coming to a conclusion and a decision on that in the next month or so. They've got a festival coming up in June called Turning the Tide. So it's about marine pollution and marine litter, because obviously they're by the sea. And one of the things that they're looking at is how every stall holder at that event and provider of refreshments is going to run that event and commit to being as plastic free as possible, and incorporating a lot of refill cups into that whole event, rather than all the rubbish that you often see when you've been to a fair or something like that. So they've got the town council on board with that. So interesting things going on there. I'm conscious we've got 5 minutes left, and I just feel as though we're getting into the of it. So I'm just going to, unless anyone's got any burning question that they really need to ask now, I'm going to whiz through the questions that are still, that people posed before they came. Now, one or two, I'm hoping, Neil, I'm hoping your question about is there any help for organising litter picks has been answered, and you're comfortable with that response. And the same, Tony, asking about single-use plastic film. What else have we got? How, this is from Chris, who isn't actually here, but let's see if it's a really quick one to answer. How does Mid Devon District Council ensure that all items that are recycled are properly reused and disposed of, and that nothing is shipped abroad? You're on mute, Darren.
I think Bobby answered that one when we were talking about the previous conversation. So
okay.
About what we're trying to do and where we send it and so on.
Okay, Stuart, do you want to ask the question? Is Stuart still here? Has he disappeared? He's gone. It's a really good question. So Stuart's from a repair cafe. Would it be possible for repair cafe workers to obtain parts and spares from recycling centres in order to help repair customer items?
That is a really interesting question. I will have to take it away and ask that one, because I have to talk to the contractors and to the chap who manages the contracts. But it is a really interesting idea, and certainly they do have a scheme where they have companies now taking sort of TVs and other high value items away, fixing them and then reselling them at the recycling centres at a number of our sites, which is great. They're looking to expand that now. That was just a trial at first. So they are doing more on the sort of repair side. And I would like to explore that question further. So I'll take that up, and I can't promise anything, but we'll see where it goes.
I think it'd be fascinating. And I remember a conversation when I was fairly new into post with Catherine around some of these sorts of questions. So I'd be really interested to hear what response you got to exploring that one. Have we got any other ones here that we haven't picked up? I think that's kind of it. Esther, you had a generic question about how do we get more people in credit and recycling more efficiently. I think the whole conversation has kind of partly touched on that. Do you want to add anything to that, or okay? So we've got a couple of minutes left. I make it 1 minute left. Has anyone got any last burning question or comment that they want to make before I say my final? Well, I'll say my final. Thank you very much to Chris and Darren and Bobby. Anyone got a final question, comment, observation?
Probably not just a question, just to say thanks to everyone for, and it is important that we do work together. And I know that there's been lots of good work that's been done over the years, and Chris and Chris has been involved in some of that. It's just that I do want to become more involved in sort of in what we do together, because I'm sure we can support each other in the district to reduce litter, reduce the waste, and so on. So thanks. And if you don't mind, I've got a couple of the emails, and I'll probably go through Helen or Bobby to get emails from the others that are on this call as well, so that we can do some work. Thank you.
Fantastic, brilliant. And so I think it's a kind of given, isn't it, that hopefully any of the groups can get in touch with you, Darren, to ask questions or ask to borrow the litter picking kit, or with Chris.
Yeah, we've got an official route as such for the litter picking. So we set it up so it goes through our customer services, because then we can sort of not rent out the sticks, but pass out the sticks so that we know how many have gone out.
Yeah.
So we don't overpromise. We've got lots of sets. We've got plenty of sticks at Phoenix House that can be passed out. But what we do, if there are groups, what we do want is a risk assessment to be completed, because then it helps with the insurance and so on.
Oh, this sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Every CAG group of mine roll their eyes every time I mention risk assessments.
Yeah. But
we've got to keep people safe, haven't we?
We have, yeah.
We also have children's litter picking kits through our schools work as well. So have whole class sets that we and our waste educators use for the classes. Excellent. Usually on school sites, not on roads, obviously.
Hopefully not. Great. Okay. Anybody else? Final comments, observations? I think generally it's fair to say we're all singing from the same hymn sheet. We're all wanting to achieve the same sorts of things, and let's share minds and resources and ideas to best achieve that as much as we can. And that's partly what CAG Devon is about, getting you together so that we can share ideas and work together, look for ways to practically work together as well, and share ideas and resources. So it's been so lovely having you all here, and thank you very much, especially to Bobby and Darren and Chris. And my email is in the chat. If anyone else wants to put theirs in the chat, I'm presuming all the CAG groups, you'd be comfortable to share emails if somebody got in touch. Yeah, fantastic. I'm taking that as your written consent to GDPR and all of that. And there will be a recording available from this when I've topped and tailed it if I need to. So I will share that with all of you. And if anyone's got any other resources they want to add that I could send out with that as well. Tim, I will look for some nudge theory references. And Darren, if you've got any nudge theory references for what you were talking about, please let me have them as well so that we can share those with everybody. So
I think I might have a few references as well, actually, because I've
fantastic.
also looked at it.
Lovely. So brilliant. Thank you so much. Great to see you all. Take care and good luck with it all going forwards.
Thank
Thank you, everyone.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.